and then suddenly you have thousands of people demanding that product, and they already paid you, but you haven't delivered the product. That was a scary thought. I definitely think there exists a tunnel vision on what innovation means.
And can we marry what matters to you to what matters the people that are around you and how that serves humanity?
We look as an investor for these 4 characteristics.
These were actually things that were battle tested and proven. You and Andreas have co-founded Birdie. I'd love for us to talk a little bit about your unique positioning when it comes to marketing, because as I've seen you guys, you've done something that I don't think a lot of people have done. And I'd love for you to, of course, run through a little bit of the story of Birdie on how you guys began with your Kickstarter campaign, and then ask you a few questions on how you take a bit of an innovative approach to that. So I'd love to hear, like, what's the story behind Birdie? How was it conceived? And of course, you guys weren't originally Birdie, so love to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. And great to be here. We started last year with a Kickstarter campaign where we launched the product, and it was like way over our expectations. We didn't really know what to expect, and what we expected was quite low. Like, we hoped that maybe 50 or 100 customer would find it cool, and that would finance like a little fraction of what we needed to begin production. But in 30 days, we had almost $500,000, which was able to finance the production and get going. So that was a crazy month last year. And since then, we have developed the product and went into manufacturing it. And now it's out in 10,000 homes in 70 countries. So that's amazing. And we're super proud. It's also been a long and hard road, but yeah, super cool.
Yeah. So far. And you guys are looking forward to the future. What does that look like for you guys? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the future is basically getting the bird out in more homes and offices and schools.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. We're focusing on sales, so we can actually continue with having this as our main job. The team are growing a little bit. We are getting people in within marketing, customer support, the engineer team, which is needed to create the future version of Birdie, which we are planning. And basically get the word out that indoor air quality is a huge problem. It's not everyone who's aware of this invisible problem. We're trying to make it visible. Basically getting the message out is our focus. Yeah.
Talk to me about why that's such a problem in terms of indoor air quality and the words, the way that we approach the problem and how you guys think differently about it.
Yeah. So the thing is, we spend 90% of our lives indoors, which is a crazy fact. It's like a fact, you don't really believe it, like, can that be true? But then you think about it, like, you wake up, that's 8 hours. You go to work, that's 8 hours. You go home on the sofa, like, you're not outside that much time of the day. And the problem is that we live in homes that are typically very well isolated, which is good for heating, but not so good for the air quality. So what it does is that it increases our risk of developing asthma and allergies, but also sleep disorder, both like in the short term and long term. And like, bad sleep leads to anything negative, right? It's the root of all evil, bad sleep. So yeah, it's just a huge problem that are affecting us kind of indirectly, invisible. So you don't really notice the problem. And because a lot of the issues are long-term issues, you only notice them too late. And me and Andreas found this problem super fascinating. Like, how can it be we have such a huge problem that no one really solved, until we heard a lot of the indoor climate experts telling us that the best thing you can do is to open the windows and get a natural airflow in your home. You will only need to do that like for a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 times a day, and then you would improve it like immensely. So I found that really fascinating. Like, okay, we have a huge problem, we have a solution suddenly, and it's actually a free solution. But still, why don't we do it? I mean, I've known this for 10 years, but still, I didn't manage to actually act on the problem and open my windows as much as I should have. And it's because you forget it, you're lazy, you're tired, you're busy, and yeah, you don't see it, you don't notice it. So I thought, like, maybe we can bridge the gap between problem and solution with some kind of visible visual cue thing, because it's an invisible problem. And then I started digging into references. No pun intended. But yeah, back in the days, the mine workers were digging into coal mines, and they brought canary birds with them because if they fainted, they knew that the air was getting toxic and they had to get up from the mine because canary birds are more sensitive to air. And I just found that super fascinating. Like, it's a great story. It's like, what, did that really happen? Like, it's just cool, and it's kind of something that a lot of people know. Like, yeah, I heard about the canary in the coal mine. Yeah, and the police made a song about it. So I just thought, like, hey, can we translate this story reference into an actual product? And yeah, that's kind of what we did. So what it does is that when the air quality is good, it will just be a fresh and living canary sitting on its branch. Yeah, so when the air quality turns bad, the bird will drop down, imitating a dead bird that needs fresh air. Yeah, look at it. Just while we're talking, the air quality turns bad. When the bird is hanging like this, it's about to die. So basically, what you have to do is to run over to the nearest window and open it. Preferable, do the same in the other end of the room, to secure natural flow. Hopefully, it'll wake up in a couple of minutes. Should do.
Hopefully it won't be brain dead by then.
I don't know for sure. Yeah.
Previously to knowing about Birdie, I never even thought about the fact that, I need good fresh air in order to like function well. But afterwards, after hearing about your company, I became so aware of the mental fog that sort of kind of comes upon me when I have all my doors shut. Like it's actually much harder to think clearly, like mood, everything. And what's interesting about this is this is almost like what? Like it's a personal assistant to actually help keep you on your toes.
Yeah. It's a reminder, basically. Yeah.
You guys aren't necessarily coming into this as engineers.
No,
and
no.
the podcast that I have people sitting on, this is for tech entrepreneurs, people who want to innovate in some way. And what I find fascinating about you is that you didn't come to the table saying, we have all the skills, we're ready to go. You came to the table with a dream. I'd love for you to unpack that. How was that challenging, getting $500,000 in funding and then being like, oh my God, we have to
finish what we started.
Exactly, yeah. You have to finish your promise. Yeah. So talk to me about that process.
That was definitely scary, bringing a product to the market, only having a 3D printed prototype, and then suddenly you have thousands of people demanding that product, and they already paid you, but you haven't delivered the product. That was a scary thought, especially that because hundreds of them was family and friends. So that was even worse. But yeah, we none of my neither me or Andreas are engineers, but I think actually that's a strength, because a lot of products in our category seems to be products made by engineers for engineers. Like it looks like smoke detectors or Wi-Fi routers. They're not super pretty. So I think the problem is that people tend to hide them behind a sofa. But the problem is then they don't see they don't see the detection of the air quality. So there might be a red blinking lamp behind your sofa that you never notice, or maybe you'll get too annoyed even if you have it in a visible spot, because like, it's lighting up in my bedroom at night, or maybe it gives an annoying sound like a dishwasher. Like, I mean, that's terrible, right? So yeah, and then there's like all the apps showing you graphs and numbers and units you don't understand. I mean, maybe engineers understand them, but normal people don't, especially not children. So
you have a different take on it.
yeah, we tried to turn the whole thing upside down basically, and thought like, can we create something that's smart on the inside but smooth on the outside, and like create a product that people need and a product that can make a lot of difference, but hide it in a product that people actually want, like a lamp or a painting or nice little chair or table, like people like things you're willing to spend some sort of money on, but it also gives you an aesthetic quality. I think that's a lot easier to sell something like that, because you are giving people something nice and aesthetic.
And there's more value than simply, knocking on the door and saying, hey, open up your windows. You're actually contributing to the house.
Exactly. It's like, we like to call it a functional design object, because let's face it, there's a lot of design objects. Of course, they're functional, but it's not like you need a new chair, you need a new lamp. But we actually believe that our product are bringing something new to the table that could actually improve your life quite a lot, while doing it in an intuitive and entertaining behavior. Like we really experience when we have the bird out in families, like kids. There we go. Can you feel it? Can you feel the fresh air? Yeah. No, we really experience in families that children at like 5 years old, they go like, Mom, we need to open the windows. The bird is dead. So, I mean, to them, it become entertainment. Like, it's engaging. Like,
and it teaches them something too.
Yeah, we gamified the boring task and annoying task and cold task of opening a window. Somehow the bird gamifies this task. I mean, imagine if we could do the same with cleaning the house. I mean, that's $1 billion idea if that succeeds.
And I'd love to explore your brain on that, because let's go to sort of first principles here. You're not just solving a problem, but you're thinking a little bit more three-dimensionally about it. I think, what can people, maybe sitting in the engineer spot, wanting to create a brilliant product, like what are the questions that you're posing, or what are the unique perspectives you're taking in your approach? Because I think this approach is definitely something that when people get a hold of, it can really bring transformation. And might I beg the question, it could actually speed up the sort of goals that we have in the first place, because it's doing it in a way that's actually fun and interesting, and people will get on board with that. You're actually contributing to the household and the office in a way that's actually introducing something much more than just fix a problem.
You want a job in our sales department? We could use someone like you. No, I think we definitely approach the problem differently. Obviously, no one looks like us on the market, and I think what we did was to actually focus on like deep diving on what is the actual problem. The problem is we don't ventilate enough. Okay, what can we do about that? All the engineers, our competitors, they have thought like, let's detect the shit out of it. Like, let's detect every molecule in the air, every particle, radon, CO2, like temperature, humidity. Let's track everything and give people the data, because every person have 8 hours a day to track data and analyze it and then go do something about it. But of course, that's not the case. So we've kind of turned it upside down and said like, okay, data is of course important. Like, we should be able to detect when the air quality is actually bad. But what is more important is how do we activate the user to act on the problem and actually do something about it. So the detection part for us, I mean, we use the best CO2 sensor in the market by a Swiss company called Sensirion. So the tech is like, it's the best, but we hid it. We hide it away, which is also why people think it's a toy sometimes, but it's just like, no, we just like, it's tech that doesn't look like tech. And instead we focused on, activating the user, which we do by communicating to our emotions. Like when you see a dead bird, I mean, it's hard not to feel something like, I want to save that bird. And it's just something we're wired for, to take care of living things. So I just think when you can communicate directly to our hearts, so I mean, it's probably in our brains, emotions, whatever, it's just a really strong trigger, much stronger than like light that are blinking green or red. I mean, okay,
Really
those are
inspiring,
colors,
yeah.
but if you weren't taught that, okay, green is good, red is bad, then you would have stand no chance. And I think that's how children see it. They don't necessarily know that red is a bad thing. And so there's a lot of calculation going in your brain where you have to translate a color or a digit, like a number telling like, okay, 1200 ppm CO2. Like it takes so much storage in your brain to crunch that data and translate it into something rational, which most humans are not. Like we're not rational people, but we're emotionally super strong and fast thinking. I had a discussion with a behavioral design expert, Sille Krokov, and she told me that crunching data like light and colors and like digits on a screen, it's a much harder process for our brain than just like image recognition. Like you see something, okay, I can recognize the shape, it's a bird, it's hanging down, must mean it's dead. Like it's much faster process. It's like old internet and fibernet. Like that's the comparison. So of course it's a stronger trigger. I think that's super fascinating how you can use communication to get people to act on a problem. And I mean, I come from a background in visual communication and advertising. So in a way, I also feel like I didn't develop a product. I just made some communication. I made some communication that is a physical object, but basically it's visual communication. Yes, there's some engineering things in it, and but it is basically communication.
So what do you uniquely bring, I guess, to the conversation of innovation in regards to what we just talked about? Like not everybody thinks like that.
No,
Not
and
everybody understands that.
No, and I mean, if it weren't for our successful Kickstarter campaign, I think I would be much more grumpy about like the whole innovation aspect, because we applied for so many funding, like governmental funding for innovation, and we got 0 grants given, and we sent like over tens of them. And I definitely think there exists a tunnel vision on what innovation means, because a lot of times it seems like it has to have something to do with biochemistry, nano something, quantum computing, machine learning, AI. Like it has to have this like nerdy, weird element, like super complicated thing in order for it to be innovation. But I like to put it more simply. Like in my mind, innovation is to solve a problem more efficiently than the existing solution does. I mean, I think you can put it that simply. Like you innovated something if you're doing it better than what someone or some product did yesterday. Like then if you're doing it more efficiently, I think you could say you are doing an innovative product. And our case and our research is that's what our product is doing. And it's using visual communication and storytelling to do that, but that's not recognized as respected science. Like, no, that's not innovation. That's just like fluffy advertising, something like we would never give that money. No. Let's have some engineers dig into how we can get more efficient data from the CO2. Like, yeah, what is that going to help? I mean, we should try to solve some problems.
That's so you're talking functionality. That's it's such an interesting approach because you know, data, you would think, oh yeah, this is, you know, we want to innovate a new product, but what you're actually doing is you're combining an understanding that things don't change just because they're better. Things change because we're motivated to make them change, and you're creating a product that motivates people to actually want to change, not that is just high tech and new and innovative. And maybe it's not necessarily, air quality is not something that's new. You know, it's like there are other air quality monitors, but what you do is actually solve the real problem, which is you get people to actually open
act on the problem,
the doors. And I would love to think like, what would the future look like if there was those principles of, you know, design, principles of user interface that, you know, Apple has just done such a great job of popularizing, of understanding what makes people get things done efficiently is clarity and something that's not complicated but is actually desirable. And Apple is not a computer company. No, they don't design electronics. No. They appeal to an aspirational identity, you know, of like, if I'm an Apple owner,
for sure,
I am someone who loves design, I love beauty, and in my opinion, it's someone who does things with excellence. It's not a lazy person, not someone who's cluttered.
Apple are doing such a good job in user experience and giving the tools that you actually need, no less, no more. And yeah, Apple is the perfect example of that. Like, how can we turn something complex into something very simple, replacing complexity with simplicity. I have a great admiration, of course, for Apple and Steve Jobs. Who doesn't? But I think, from my perspective, our project is really nudging. And you asked me, like, what is the potential? What is the perspective on this? And I think the perspective is that we could make some things more enjoyable and more efficient because we turn them into something fun or engaging or meaningful. Like, it could be in so many ways. And going back to the talk about data, I guess you could make a reference to someone who want to lose weight. Like, you can read so many things on how to do this, but at the end of the day, you have to act on it. Like, otherwise, it's just a lot of information in your head. And I think if we can develop things that nudge us to do these things, and I'm not an expert on the whole weight thing, but I guess there's a lot of training, nudging mechanisms that you can do to get better at running. Maybe you give yourself a reward somehow, or you're not too hard on yourself. Like, there's so many tools within different fields, but I think the interesting part is how to develop that nudging element, and preferable without the user even knowing. Like, I mean, just an example, the kids that will see the dead bird. I can give it that. I mean, the kids, when they see a dead bird, like, they want to save it. They even see it as a pet that needs fresh air in order to relive, and that's super cute. But it's also super powerful. Like, they don't even know what is going on inside the bird. Like, for them, it's a real bird, and it's entertaining because it gives a response when they do something. Like, open the window. Oh, I just cured a bird. So nudging is just it's a powerful tool, and I think there's a lot to discover yet in the whole nudging game. There's so many ways you can utilize it, I think.
So I'm going to pick your brain and ask.
Yeah.
Let's go deep. You're on the work floor of ideation process. You want to create an innovative process, and maybe you're advising an engineer or someone who's up and coming, and they want to make something innovative. Your process puts into consideration things like design principle, things like usability, and things that aren't necessarily, you would say, at the forefront of like an engineer's thought process, right?
Yeah, toolbox.
Exactly. For design, that's not maybe the core focus. More so, it's data and innovation. So tell me from the beginning, what would be a great way, or what would be a model for innovation based off of what you're doing? And I would preface this by saying, I listened to you on LinkedIn. You have quite a bit of people who are really engaged. You've created a community around this thing, and I would say it's not common, okay? And so it's actually something to take in consideration. Like, okay, I bring something to the table, an ability to help people kind of be raptured or join in the discussion with me. That in my opinion, has created quite a substantial impact on the success of Birdie. So how could someone learn from the kind of different approach that you take in the process of how am I going to make this product successful? Because your product's not just a product; it's more than that. It's a commentary, it's a conversation, it's something that gets people together, and gets the kids to open up the door, stuff like that. That's a big question.
I'm flattered now, but no, I think there's a lot of questions in that. I mean, first of all, I think like one of the biggest challenge in coming up with new ideas and great ideas is that we block ourselves. Like we think things have to turn out in a certain way, or it have to look like the coolest thing that is right now, but then you're just doing the same stuff. So I think we and it's super hard, but we really need to have confidence in exploring new ideas and making something that you see like, okay, I never seen something like this, but I like it, even though I can connect it to any other things I know. So like trust in your gut feeling. If you
Did
have
you do
like
that in your own process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our product was not created on market research and like, oh, here's a blue ocean and this category is going to grow by 50% by 2030 and this is going to be the price point and this is our audience and this is how we're going to get them. And like it was just like there was this problem, and I was itching my head like, how can we solve this problem? And I was through so many ideas, and this came up and I was like, this feels right. And then we just put it out and developed it. It was all based on gut feeling. Like we like to say that we're not a data-driven company. We are a gut-driven company. I like that phrase because it is really true. And I think that is the key to make something that is completely new. It is to trust your gut. Of course, you have to know what is in the world and you have to find inspiration. But you also have to trust yourself in everything you do. I think maybe not finance, but I think there is a tendency to box thinking, even within the creative industry. We just changed our barcode on a product. I might even have an example.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know where I can show it. This one, yeah. So before, like a month ago, our barcode were like anyone else's. It was square, and I think it's an example of square thinking, because a barcode apparently doesn't need to be square. It can look like a bird. It can look like our logo, and like by that we are turning a boring mandatory part of product packaging into something cool and something recognizable. And I think that there are so many stories that are waiting to be unfolded within all the mandatory tasks, like, I don't know, it could be domains, it could be invoice letters, it could be parking tickets, it could be
Parking tickets.
but I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
that's
something that
bad.
says, just imagine this could have been 4 dinner nights with your spouse.
Maybe you would feel better, or maybe they'll be able to explain how it's going to contribute in taxes to all these cool things, and you can actually feel like, okay, I donated some money today because I choose the wrong parking spot. But no, I think my what I'm trying to say is that there's so many things within a product, within a brand, within a company that you can apply design thinking on. But because we are so box thinking, we don't think like, that's not an option. Like, this is how it has to be. And then our engineer told us, no, you can change the barcode. Like, no one says it has to look like that. And like, it's funny also coming into the entrepreneurial world, we meet so many new people who know things about engineering, finance, marketing, sales. So we try to be very humble because we think they know anything. So we ask a lot of stupid questions, and then they kind of break the glass roof for us and tell us like, no, you don't have to do it like that, but you can change it up. So I think, yeah, it's just interesting. I worked in advertising for 5 years, and I never had a brief saying, hey, turn our barcode into something cool. Like, it was always the same, like, do this brand campaign, do this new film, do this print campaign. Like, we shouldn't stop there. Like, we should keep on and say like, hey, we don't have a barcode. We just have the barcode everyone is having. Let's make a brief how to turn it into something cool or something that delivers a message. I think there's also some great examples of this. A brand like Liquid Death, who looks like an energy drink brand, but are actually just selling water. But their communication are like, it's crazy. But they turned their newsletter sign up into just like the most funny copy I've read in a long time. And I think that's a good example. Like, it doesn't have to say sign up for newsletter, blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't read that because like you don't just ignore it because you know what you're seeing. So when someone is like turning it upside down, like, okay, that's funny. Same goes for Oatly. I saw they did a really funny cookie information agreement, like when you enter a website. So I think it's fun to take all these boring aspects of a company and turn them into some real great communication that people actually gonna care about.
And I think the lesson behind the impact here that I take, of course, I'm for example, last week I interviewed someone who's focused on bringing transformation in green tech. How do we create a sustainable net zero future, right? That's the focus. Using technology in order to solve the world's biggest problems.
Yeah.
The questions that you're posing are actually, I think it's interesting because obviously you weren't able to find an investor that was interested, but you're able to solve a real problem through thinking with a different lens. And that is not asking the question of, okay, how do we just solve indoor air quality problems, but also asking the question of like, how do we motivate people to get from point A to point B? Not just awareness, but action. And I think that's it's definitely a huge conversation, specifically in the area of, environmental conservation and things like that. And asking, how do we motivate masses of people to be inspired to make the right decision? It would be assumed that everyone would know, take care of the environment, thumbs up.
Yeah.
But how can we actually think for a future where we have things that surround us that fortify those desires, that actually help us as, in one sense, personal assistant. This is for an office, HR manager, for example, someone who's looking to improve their the quality of the workplace. This is an office assistant. This
Yeah.
helps with
it's a new employee.
Yeah, exactly. It's like someone who's there to actually help optimize people's health, and it doesn't require any thought. Like it's something it's visually stimulating. It's something that appeals to our emotions.
It's
Like
intuitive.
yeah. Exactly. And so I think that's definitely a beautiful conversation starter. Of like,
I think it's interesting, like talking about awareness and action, like, and also coming from advertising, it's only awareness. Like, hey, this is cool because of this. End of the story. But like during the last 10 years in advertising, this term story doing has been more and more common. Like, it's not storytelling anymore, it's story doing. And you, instead of telling about a product or a problem or whatever, you are actually gonna do something about it. I think that's a really cool tendency in the advertising game. And it was also the reason why I entered. Like the cases that got me interested was story doing ideas. Like it was brands saying, hey, we are Volvo, we're all about safety, but we have these super dangerous cars. What if we made a spray paint that you could spray in your clothes, and then your clothes would become reflective, so you would be more visible in the night. So they made Volvo Life Paint. It's some really cool Danish guys, Jonas and Rasmus, who did that 10 years ago. Really cool creative guys. And I think examples like that are just like, whoa. Then it's more than just storytelling. You're actually solving the problem, and yeah, you're not just talking about it. You're not just talking about it. You're actually doing it, which is also a much better campaign, because then it gets newsworthy, because it's not like a fictive universe in the commercial break on TV. It's actually someone who are doing something in the world, and you can tell news about that. So it's also a great PR.
That's beautiful. You know, I run a lot of parallels, because as running a production company, thinking about videos.
Yeah.
Like, well, the question of like, how much is video worth? Well, let's reverse engineer and talk about that, because videos don't just, you can't just put data on a spreadsheet and say, this is what it's going to do for your company.
No.
There's something about design and beauty that really does reflect on your brand, and if you just, for example, created a cheap budget film, that's going to reflect negatively on your company. It's going to people are going to perceive you in a different way.
Sure.
And that's why like people are willing to invest, brands are willing to invest a lot of money to make sure that they are representing an ideal, and they take it seriously. And this idea, it's interesting, because you would think data would be the only, for marketing, data would be the only thing that comes into the picture when it comes to a valuable asset for a company. And it's just not true.
No.
Like you want to create assets that are actually going to do more than just, well, we'll put it this way. It's not a conflict of interest to produce something beautiful, because it actually does drive people to action. And that's sometimes...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be tactical.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to put your product and logo on like every fucking sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of brands think that. I also, like, after I become a product owner, I can catch myself in thinking those ways and be nervous about like, but do people get it? Like, what if they turn off the video after 3 seconds, then they don't see my product? Like, oh, like I'm gonna waste money. But as you say, it doesn't have to be a conflict of interest, because if you create something that's visually stunning and like really good storytelling and speaking to our emotions, then your message is gonna come out much more powerful.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be easier for you to sell whatever you're selling.
Yeah, in the short and long term. When it comes to reputation and things like that.
Yeah, you're gonna build a brand if you do quality content. So for sure, it's worth it. But it's so, like, talking about data, it's so hard to pinpoint. Like, was that because of the product or the video or the trend in the market? I mean,
it's crazy how many people they watch your stuff they watch my videos, for example. They won't comment, they won't like, but everybody knows. Like they've seen it, and they'll approach you years later and make a comment. You know, it's because they're following. They perceive you differently, and that's what I've seen.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's
it's
crazy.
interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I definitely think it has like a huge value, and it's undervalued. Definitely.
Yeah, design thinking, like the idea of data and analytics is like there's only so much that can be tracked, and of course it's important, like you said, but we can't underplay the importance of really investing time into making something functional, something practical, something that ties to our emotions. You know, spending the time to really think about how do we present this. You know, how do we, in my case, produce a film that doesn't just do the same thing, you know, but actually...
Yeah, but brains are scared. People are scared. No brand manager want to lose their job because they took a chance and went with their gut feeling. And it's because data, like we only have data on what is simple to understand, simple to grasp. So what happens is we don't recognize the intangible things like feelings and senses and intuition. We don't recognize it as something that has a value because we can't measure it. But that doesn't mean that it's not just as important as the other half. So, I'm not saying that we should make every decision on a gut-based feeling, but maybe we should just allow ourselves to go from the like data, rational, everything we can prove kind of end of the spectrum to just like the middle of the spectrum and acknowledge that all the things we can track and we can get data on still has a value. But you're not going to put a slide in your deck that says like, this is what we can expect because we chose this gut-driven feeling. But we just still have to trust it and defend it and just acknowledge that it has a value, even though we can't measure it. And I mean, now we're just talking marketing, but I think you can apply this in everything in society. I think that we are way too focused on the rational thinking, and we should definitely give intuition a chance, I think.
Yeah. And that goes right back to what we're talking about, which is if you want to fit in as an air quality monitor, you could have done the thing of just having a button.
Yeah.
You know, that just has red or green. You
Easy.
could have done that.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to make something that actually would do something different, you have to innovate. You
Yeah.
have to be
For me,
willing.
it was like personally, I wouldn't be satisfied if I was just like doing what you could expect.
Well, people who are motivated by fear, I think they would be, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, at least I can look
like,
at the data
okay,
and say, this is what the market says.
Yeah, this is how you do it. Okay,
Yeah.
you detect something, and then you give it an output that's either sound, light, app, or display. Like that's the only reason. And of course, I went through that in this process. But I was just going back to the drawing board, like it's not good enough. Can't feel it. And then like, bam, suddenly, like looking for the reference in the coal mine, I was just like, there it is.
Yeah.
It must be possible to make a bird go dead. And then I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I discovered like, okay, there's a CO2 sensor, there's a motor, and I mean, loose parts is kind of easy to think of. So I just started developing like, oh, it's possible, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's getting me pretty excited to see it. Hopefully, other people will feel the same way. So I just trusted my gut feeling, and luckily I got my like really great partner Andreas on board, and he's also really a guy who trusts his gut feeling, and he trusted mine. We trusted each other's gut feeling. Our guts intertwined into this like giant gut that just took a huge chance and quit its job and went all in on a Kickstarter campaign. Yeah.
And the results show, and that's the thing. If you
that's lucky. Otherwise, it would be a bad case.
Well, you know, the part of innovation is if you're not excited about your product, if it doesn't get you excited, it
what are the chances?
Will not get someone else excited.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's just a very interesting process to see how you've taken your unique perspective, your background, obviously with advertising and understanding those things, and you followed your gut in this to create something that is a big part of the whole, journey within the product. It's like this is what makes it. There's of course the actual functional part that makes it, but that's just as much the identity of the product and the company as anything. So
thank you. I just want to state that I had a point.
You wanted to state
It's
that you
getting
had a
late.
point.
I want to state that at some point I had a point.
Yeah.
It's now forgotten.
That's amazing.
But I still want to state it. No,
Yes.
no. What I want to say that I think it's also like talking about intuition and gut feeling. I think it's important to just be able to see tendencies in society. It could be in culture. It could also be like, hey, we're spending all this time on our phones and we are getting distracted. I think it's like 250 times a day brands are trying to get our attention in different ways. So when we get home and want to rest, we are so exhausted. Then so like if you were to send a notification that, hey, now you need to open your windows, it would feel like a boring task you had to do. Like you would probably just ignore it because there's an ocean of notifications. So I think acknowledging like kind of like the feeling of society, like what is happening right now. Okay, there's definitely, it's a war for information. We are living in, isn't it called like the information age, like the attention age, like everyone is trying to get your attention all the time. So people hate their phones and they hate that their kids have iPads. So I think we were open to see that and thought like, okay, then the solution is not to develop an app. How can we communicate something without an app? And how can we actually make something simple for people and not taking more attention than we need to in order to solve their problem, in our case, indoor air quality. Yeah, I just think that's it's important to be aware of the tendencies going on in society, to actually touch upon something that's real and that solves people's problem eventually. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Hans, it was a pleasure to ask you questions.
Likewise.
And to have you on the podcast, man.
It was a super nice experience.
Awesome.
Thank you. It was like, where are we going? Is the handshake? That was intuition.